Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:30. Thank you for coming. This is the regular school board meeting for October 17th, 2017. Clerk Carla, will you call the roll, please? To put you on.
Thank you. I am here. Member Johnston? Here. Chair Kirby?
Here.
Member Leffler-Kemp?
Here.
Member Oswald?
Here.
Member Sandstead?
Here.
Member Welty?
Here.
Superintendent Gronseth?
Here.
Deputy Clerk Hassler? Here. Secretary Dolans? Here. Student Representative Emmel? Here. Student Representative Francis? Here. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Moved by Member Welty, seconded by Member Harlan. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved 7-0. Next, we have approving our minutes. The first is of our special board meeting of September 14th. I have a motion to approve those as written, and seconded by Member Oswald. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving those minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? They're approved 7-0. And secondly, our regular school board meeting of September 19th. There's a motion to approve that and a seconded by Member Leffler-Kemp. Any discussion on that? Member Johnston. There you go.
So very quick, I want to thank staff for all the good work they've been doing. Remember, like a few years ago, we used to have lots of corrections, and we've almost had none. So thank you, staff, for your good work on that.
Any other discussion? Seeing none then, all in favor of approving the minutes of September 19th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved 7-0. Thank you. Next, we have school and community recognition. Will you join me down in front? Oh, we need this on.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm pleased to present students from the Culinary Arts Program and student-run restaurant, Food for Thought, and their instructor, Chef Glenn DeMore. Each year, the Head of the Lakes United Way organizes a chili cook-off to help raise funds to support community programs. The cook-off draws over 1,500 chili lovers and over 40 chilies. Area chefs vie for bragging rights while the public joins the fun by sampling and voting for their favorite. Students in the ISD 709 Culinary Arts Program and their instructor, Chef DeMore, created a black bean and chipotle chili for this year's competition. The dish featured fresh tomatoes and onions from the Duluth East School Garden. Students served chili to hundreds of people at the event. At the end of the evening, their entry took first place in the amateur division, and they received the 2017 People's Choice Award. Overall, a great experience for our students and great exposure for the ISD 709 Career and Tech Education Program, and I was there the day they were making it, and it was awesome to watch. So, congratulations.
All right, thank you. Samples would not be turned away the next time. All right, next in our agenda is audience participation. I would like to remind people if they have handouts to give them to the secretary and they can distribute them to us later. I don't know if there are any tonight, but that should be done. First, Kevin Square Brown. Welcome. Make sure this is on. Okay, there we go.
So Superintendent Gronseth, board members, good evening. My name is Kevin Square Brown. I'm here representing the Community-Based School Equity Initiative. We recently requested and received from the district information regarding a number of the priority issues that we're focused on. One that we wish the board to consider is the June 20th unanimous vote by this elected body directing the district to create a multi-year plan to align compensatory education spending with the buildings that generate it. When we recently asked for an update on the process for formulating that plan, we were told about the annual budget process, how it begins in January, the timing of the various steps, leading up to a June approval of the annual budget. Perhaps we just weren't clear in our question. We see the plan for realigning Comp Ed as being a prerequisite to the annual budget process. Realigning Comp Ed funding is a big deal. Like possible changes to the current 6, or for some 7, period day, a change in how Comp Ed is distributed also needs thoughtful consideration. Like changes to the high school schedule, it requires a distinct process. Again, it is something that should come before, not during, the annual budgeting work. We call on the administration to lay out a process and timeline for creating a plan to reduce and then end the diversion of Comp Ed funding. We call on that process to begin while the board which passed that resolution is present to review it. If the district isn't willing to act in a timely manner, we will ask school board members to call a special meeting to address this topic. We don't take lightly the ramifications of this bold move for equity. This administration did not invent, instead it inherited a pattern of using Comp Ed or achievement gap money to meet general education school funding needs. As the superintendent said in June, it is baked in. Undoing that pattern of diversion will require adjustments. For starters, we will all have to stop thinking of Comp Ed money used to uniformly lower class sizes as a legitimate Gen Ed funding stream. We will then have to figure out how to address the general education needs left exposed when Comp Ed money is returned to its intended purpose. Habits, even bad habits, are hard to kick. We will need to engage the community in a frank dialogue about the patterns of financial diversion that have served some while doing a disservice to others. As a community, we'll have to work together, accept that there may be hard choices and sacrifices as we move forward to a more equitable future. We will all have to keep in mind that even when doing the right thing is painful, it is still the right thing to do. We look forward to joining you in doing what is right. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Bernie Burnham. Oh, there you are. Welcome.
Well, hi there. I just thought I'd give you a little update on what's been happening with me and the DFT and some of our teachers in the district. I know we haven't been here for a while, so the latest big thing I think that we did just recently was took a team out to Milwaukee and attended the Community Schools Institute, sponsored by the NEA, the National Education Association. We were there with schools from 5 other cities around the country and found out that we don't have the largest school district, obviously, and saw some other districts with lots of challenges. But I think some of the things we found out there that were so important in our endeavors in helping our schools be successful and creating more community schools, hopefully in the future, was that to really look at the social and emotional well-being of our students and families and our staff as a whole, looking at restorative justice practices that will help our students do better in school and help our teachers reach our students better. We had a team of us that went. There were 2 folks from Denfeld, Donna Liebsack, who is the new community schools coordinator there, and Tanya Scanier, the principal. From Lincoln, we had Aaron O'Leary, who is a special ed teacher out at Lincoln, and Rachel Tappa, who is the community schools coordinator there. And from Myers-Wilkins, we had Stefan Witherspoon with us, who is, as you know, the president of the NAACP, and also at Myers-Wilkins, he is the health coordinator, so newly hired in that position as well. And then myself and Assistant Superintendent Amy Starzecki. So I think a well-rounded team that was there together to do a lot of work. We were in session for 3 full days and a half a day, and worked hard every day and learned from others, and also did some good team building among our group. The next thing I want to share with you is that our mentor-mentee program is up and running this year. We have about 40-plus pairs again working together, so a good opportunity for our senior teachers to work with our newer teachers and help them feel better about where they are in their teaching career. And then finally, we are going to start again, you heard about this a little bit last year, our one-to-one conversations, and we started last year in 5 sites. We're going to continue in the rest of the 13 this year, and we're doing that through the help of a Value of Belonging grant we got from Education Minnesota that will help us have release time for folks to go out and have conversations with every one of our certified staff in the building. So we're looking forward to doing that, and if you don't know, I'm actually I'm an elementary teacher, as you know, but on full-time release this year for the first time, so able to really focus on the work that I'm doing with our teachers and our students, and I feel really good about being able to be out in classrooms, and when people call and need me to come out, I'm able to do that, so it's been nice to have that. Just finishing up Breakfast with Bernie. I think I have 2 schools left, so that's been a good thing too. So nobody's here tonight with me because they're all in conferences. Not everybody, but our folks are working hard and they're just wrapping up conferences, and I think really busy. But we have work to do as always, and we know that. But I thank you for the work you do, and we look forward to attending the meetings this year.
Thank you. Next is Melissa Meyer. Welcome.
Thank you. So I have laryngitis, so I'm going to try to talk the best I can. So basically tonight I'm actually coming to ask for your help to fulfill your roles as school board members and superintendent. Any of you that know me know that I am an advocate for children and families. That is my passion and that is what I do. And this year, my family has come across some severe challenges. My daughter Isabella last year had an incident where she was punched in the face by a student, and we decided, we were just going to let the school handle it. And then this year, the same student had assaulted her again and came up behind her and started hitting her. And again, I thought, we're going to let the school handle it. This child has, proceeded to harass her, mock hit her, intimidate her, and they're in the same classroom. And so we're allowing the school to handle this by, what they wanted to do is have a, this is what happens when I talk in front of people, I blank out. But they were going to do a restorative circle. We said, okay, we'll do the restorative circle, we'll do whatever the school deems necessary. They did the process, but the child decided that he was going to continue to touch my daughter. And so that didn't work. So they decided they were going to have a no contact order, even though they're still in the same classroom together. The no contact order did not work as he continues to harass her or use tactics of intimidation and stare her down or make these mocking, hitting motions at her. And my daughter, in the meantime, I've set up with a social worker through the school. I've now set up with a therapist because she's shutting down completely. She's not handling this at all. She dances competitively, she's in gymnastics, she's in soccer, and she no longer has any motivation to do any of these things because as we went to the doctor one day because she was sick, she was filling out the form, and where it says depressed, anxiety, all these things, she said, yeah, that's how I'm feeling. And she said, Mom, do you think if I tell them here, they'll do something about it? Because the school's not taking care of her. So the school's doing what they can, but there's policies in place. So she finally says to me, Mom, I need him out of the classroom. I can't be in this environment with him. And so I approached the school and said, I need him out of the classroom. They can't be in the same classroom together. He's really, this isn't okay. And they can't do that because of policy that's in place. His parents don't want him to remove out of the classroom at this point in the year. So she's saying, Mom, take me out of the classroom. I don't want to be out of the classroom, but I can't do it anymore. I can't handle it. So we've had to remove her out of the classroom. So she asked me to ask you, why does she need to be punished for him hurting her? Why are you allowing her to be punished for him hurting her? And why does she have to send a message to the rest of her classmates that when she stands up for herself, she has to be punished? So I'm asking you to change your policy. That parents don't, if there is enough evidence that somebody is abusing somebody, that you don't have to have parents' permission to remove them from the classroom. I am all about parents' rights. Everybody knows that I believe in parent power. But when it shows that someone is abusing somebody else, I think there comes a time that they need to be removed. And I will do everything in my ability to work with you to do anything to change your policies, but you need to step up and protect the children, because there are children that are not being protected when they're being abused because of these policies. Thanks.
Thank you. There are no other people signed up unless there's someone else here. Okay, thank you. And no communications or petitions? None. Then we'll go to the report of the superintendent.
All right. Ironically, not ironically, but fitting is the fact that October is anti-bullying month. And I just want to reach out, I'm not sure if she left or if she's still here, to let Missy know that we'll follow up on what you're talking about. This isn't something that's come to our attention, so we will follow up with staff and find out what's going on there. So with that, I want to say that bullying is something that we do work on year-round. And this month, we have an even greater focus on the importance of creating safe and welcoming environments. Because bullying is a personal, emotional topic. And I think one that we all have a connection to. I think most people could share a story, either as a victim or a witness or having bullying behaviors themselves. And so it's something that we all have a connection to in our lifetimes. And I want to give thanks to the staff and community who have spent a lot of time developing what is one of the strongest anti-bullying policies in the state. We know that education is of the utmost of importance in this. We know that our staff and our students and our families need to have the knowledge and skills to be able to prevent and respond to and restore actions because of bullying. And there are resources listed on our website. There are actually several resources listed for families and for educators on the topic of bullying. There's also online bullying reporting forms for each of our schools right on our website. And we really encourage anyone who is witnessing or experiencing bullying to reach out and to make a report so that we can follow up on it. All of us working together, we can make a difference on this. And social media is another really important topic, and I encourage everyone to speak to their children, speak to their families about the importance of responsible behavior online. So please take time to discuss and monitor those online behaviors with your children. Everyone deserves to feel safe and welcome in school. Everyone needs to feel safe and welcome for learning to happen, and we all play a part of it. We want everyone to feel safe in our classrooms, in our schools, and throughout our community. And if we all become part of that process, we can make a difference. So I just felt I needed to say that tonight. On to some other celebrations of events that have happened this month. Earlier this month, we had Walk to School Day, and several of our schools encouraged families to walk to school. And we had remote drop-offs at some of our buildings, so the buses stopped a little bit a ways from the school, so even the students who usually ride the bus got to walk to school, and it was a lot of celebrations going on around the district along with that. Last week, we also had the Great Apple Crunch. It's a nationwide event encouraging healthy eating and specifically eating apples. So our food service department worked with local partners to arrange for all students to receive apples during lunch last Thursday. I understand that they were all from Bayfield, Wisconsin, so right in time for the Apple Fest up there. And you can check out hashtag Great Apple Crunch on Twitter for examples from all over the country and pictures of kids biting into an apple. As Bernie mentioned, many of our schools have had conferences over the past 2 weeks. I know some are in progress just as we speak. We want to thank all the staff for the efforts in preparing for conferences, and there were lots of good conversations going on all over the place about our students and their progress. The end of the grading period for middle and high school is right around the corner on November 3rd, so that's coming up quickly. In addition to our usual site visits, Assistant Superintendent Amy Starzecki and I have been meeting with all the staff in all of the schools, sharing information about some of our big projects this year. And it's part of a larger plan to increase communication directly with staff in the buildings and to receive feedback on plans as we move forward. So we look forward to continuing our roadshow tour, as we've been calling it, and as we make our way through the district over the next couple of weeks. I also want to remind folks, I'm sure Ben and Cambria are well aware, that this is a short week for students. This Thursday and Friday is the annual Minnesota Education Association conference held down in the Twin Cities. I understand we have many teachers again making the trip down for the conference. It's also a weekend that many families make college visits. A lot of colleges open up their campuses during this short week so that students can come out and check out their colleges. I know it's an exciting time, and I understand we have many families heading in all different directions to check out campuses, so we wish them safe travels. And finally, our student reports. I know there has been a lot going on in our schools. I know homecoming has been come and gone, so we'll probably hear some about that. And why don't we start with the student representative, Ben Emmel from Denfeld.
Thank you. And I would first like to say, on behalf of the Denfeld student body, thank you for our first 2 days off of school, this Thursday and Friday, as you had also said. Also, I'd like to point out that our volleyball team has been doing really well this fall season with a winning record, including a victory over Hibbing last night. And as we speak right now, they are over in Superior competing against the Spartans. And I, as well as many other Denfeld students and staff, are looking forward to the section playoffs, as they will be coming up soon. And I would also like to recognize that the football team got their first victory of the season last Friday over Hibbing. And tomorrow at 6 p.m. at PSS, the boys will play their final season game against Grand Rapids, and it is senior night. And the girls' swim team has been tearing up the competition with multiple swim meet victories, including a really big swim meet that they won as a team was the Soderland swim meet. Was a little while ago, and we wish them the best when section playoffs come around. And the boys varsity soccer team is playing as we speak in the section semifinal against Chisago in Chisago. And if the Denfeld wins tonight, I would like to invite you all to the section championship, which is going to be held this Thursday at PSS at 7 p.m. Furthermore, Denfeld's Link Crew has held its annual dodgeball event, and it was once again a major success. And I would like to give a shout out to Mr. Lewis for getting the Link Crew program new and improved dodgeballs this year, as last year they did not work that well. And Link Crew will continue to provide other events throughout the year for freshmen to make them feel more welcome in the Denfeld family. And as president of the National Honor Society, I'm proud to announce that 66 juniors and seniors were inducted into Denfeld's National Honor Society chapter. And National Honor Society inductees are leaders in and out of the classroom, and they help to tutor other students and also perform service acts in the community. Ms. Sconners also reminded me that Denfeld would like to thank the Subaru Corporation for donating over 1,500 assorted books to Denfeld School. And also, Denfeld art students and Jonathan Thunder, a painter and digital artist, will be creating a mural for the American Indian Education Department, and tomorrow, I believe, is their first meeting. I'm not sure exactly what they will be creating a mural of, but I'm looking forward to that. And Denfeld's Homecoming Spirit Week was the last week in September, and it was filled with a lot of spirit. Almost all the students dressed up for the Spirit Days, and I'd like to announce that Emma Schultz and Robert Williams were crowned Homecoming King and Queen. And at the PEP Assembly, Key Club announced that over $600 was raised for the Special Education Department through Coin Wars. And the upperclassmen won the competition, and 2 teachers got a face full of whipped cream. And those teachers were Mr. Fox and Mr. Percy, because the Denfeld upperclassmen, they tied for the highest amount of votes. And I would also like to give a big shout out to the Duluth Fire Department for helping us with our annual bonfire, and I am very proud that I was very happy to attend it all 4 years, and I'm hoping to continue that tradition for many generations to come. And lastly, I would like to once again invite you all to attend Denfeld's production of High School Musical. It is at 7 p.m. on Thursday, November 2nd through Saturday, November 4th. All 3 days are at 7 p.m. And on Sunday, the musical is at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Also, the Wednesday before those productions, over 500 students from local elementary schools are coming to Denfeld to watch the play, including Laura MacArthur, Stowe, Piedmont, Myers-Wilkins, Lowell, Anderson, and St. James, and I hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And now from East, Student Representative Cabria Francis.
Hi. Well, firstly, I'd like to apologize for missing last month's meeting. I was participating in sections with my soccer team. We won the game that I missed the meeting for, but unfortunately we were knocked out by Andover last Thursday. It was a well-fought game, and we ended the season and my high school soccer career with our heads held high. But switching over to some wins, this month we welcomed students into the National Honor Society at the induction. We also inducted members into the Duluth East Hall of Fame, which consisted of a dinner at Duluth East that I cooked and served at with members of the exec board and members of Key Club. We hosted and said Auf Wiedersehen, I don't know if I said that right, I googled that, to 20 German exchange students. We selected members and began attending Rotary meetings, which I am excitingly participating in. We celebrated, as you saw earlier, the cooking class students who participated and won the chili cook-off. And speaking of the cooking class, the Food for Thought restaurant opens this month on the 24th. There are a few new items on the menu to look out for. It's pretty exciting. We also celebrated the selection of our choir for the statewide final competition. And last week we crowned our homecoming queen and king, Pearl Elliott and Tony Robinson. I personally voted for them, and I believe that the court was one of the hardest to choose from, but there couldn't have been a better selection by the student body. This month is also East for Peace Month. In celebration of that, we held a peace walk that over 100 students attended. We had speakers Matthew Campbell and Miss Warmanen from Boundless talk about mental health awareness. And Exec Board has been putting on, starting yesterday, our annual clothespin compliment. We have individual compliments written on hundreds of clothespins that are supposed to be secretly attached to people. Sometimes that doesn't work out very well. We've had multiple meetings, including one during last week's Education Committee meeting about increasing mental health awareness with the joint efforts of Boundless Club participants. And we are continuing our involvement in that and the Pride campaign over the next couple of months. A couple of miscellaneous things that happen throughout the month are that Hound Pack Leaders, which at Denfeld is called the Link Crew, including myself, have begun meeting with freshmen on Friday during WIN, called Fun Friday. And our school, a second thing is that our school participated in the walk/ride your bike to school today, which was actually really popular. It was very hard to find a place to chain my bike when I got there. And then finally, a couple of sports things happening tonight. There's a girls' volleyball game, which will be their senior night and their final home game, and a boys' soccer game, which started 2 minutes ago. It's their section final game, meaning if they win, they're headed to state. And my brother is actually playing in this game, so I wish good luck to him and all the other players tonight. We're hoping for big wins from both of them. So, with that being said, I'm excited for the busyness of the upcoming months, and I look forward to next month's meeting.
Very good, thank you. And I did want to say that Chef Glenn DeMore did give me some information while we're standing down here that he's considering adding the award-winning chili to next semester's menu. So a little more motivation to go and check out Food for Thought. And that ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you. All right, next is a report of our standing committee, education first. Member Lefler-Kemp.
I'm feeling kind of exhausted after our student reports, how busy you guys are. It's wonderful. So I am going to report on the meeting that was held last week with the Education Committee, and I want to thank my school board colleague, Member Oswald, for facilitating that in my absence. And I'm sorry I missed some of the discussions in the meeting, but I did review the video today, so I got caught up. The first informational item, as always, is our Assistant Superintendent's report, and she focused on kind of the three key areas that she's been spending time in. The first one was on the multi-tiered systems of support, which we've been getting many updates on over the last couple years as we've been focused on this. She shared with us about the focus of staff training from K through 12 around implementing behavior plans to support students who have challenging behaviors prior to qualifying for special ed, so kind of the social emotional behavior side. She talked also about the focus with our secondary level on and with our teachers around the focus of literacy and reading instruction, and then that at the elementary level, the plans and the focus around math. And so that was a good discussion at the meeting. She also shared with us about the work and the time she's been spending with principals across the district. 3 times a year, she spends doing evaluations with them, and so in the fall, in mid-year, in the winter. But she also spends time with them throughout the year as well, but in terms of the evaluation piece. So she reviewed that piece, the goal setting that she does with them in the fall. And then she reported on the work of our continuous improvement teams. And again, we've had a lot of background information on the planning over the last couple years and the training with staff and that each of our schools have continuous improvement teams. And so there was a training back in June and then also a training in September and all of our schools and their teams have been trained at this point. We can look forward to updates from 2 schools a month in our education committee on the plans from the different schools across the district. So I look forward to that, and just really great work, Assistant Superintendent, in the planning and support that you give to our principals and the continuous improvement team to get started on having a stronger school year. So thank you for those updates. The second informational item was on the mental health partnership update, and Cabria touched on it. This update was done by Ron Lake, who's again our Duluth Public Schools Climate Coordinator. Also Ashley Anderson from St. Louis Public Health was at this meeting, and then 4 students from East with that are working with us and with a student organization called Boundless. And I was really sorry to miss that discussion, particularly the thoughtfulness of the students, their comments. But the discussion was around the partnership that we have right now with St. Louis County Public Health as well as Carleton County. And a lot of discussion was shared about student leadership and involvement around the work we're doing around mental health and suicide prevention and training that's been happening with our staff as well as with students, and about the protocol for supporting students who have mental health needs and having a consistent protocol from school to school. So I know Ron Lake provided a lot of background information as part of his presentation, and I hope all board members had a chance to look at it. It was really great, and again, I just really appreciate the students who attended and really shared about the concerns, the support that they feel is needed around mental health, the work that is being done at all 5 of our schools this year, our 2 middle schools and our 2 high schools, and the work of the district. What was clear by the presentation was the role that our staff play, our teachers play with students, supporting students, and also being a resource for students. So big shout out for the staff really building those relationships with students. So that was the informational presentation on mental health partnerships, and we've have a number of partnerships around this issue, and I'm hopeful about the expanding the kinds of support to meet the needs of our kids. So the second area of informational report was the information on the 2017-18 class size and then course offerings. So the last, again, there were handouts on that showed where class sizes were across the district, how many sections that we have across the district. So that was real helpful. And the second area of that presentation was then on the course offerings. And the last 4 years, in the fall of the year, we've had presentations on what is being offered at the middle school and the high school, what are the numbers looking like for the different classes. And at the committee meeting, there was some good discussion, particularly around the variety of classes that are offered, as well as there were some questions about world language offerings, and I was just really glad to see the strong numbers in our music, in our arts, and in our languages, and it gave me a good understanding of just where our student interest is at as well. So that was an informational item, and appreciated that. And then the next item on the report is our regular grant applications, and we had 5 this month. The first one is the Duluth Engineering Design Program submitted 2 grant applications to the Arrowhead Manufacturers and Fabricators Association in the amount of $200 and $1,500. One of the grants would go to the welding program at Denfeld High School if awarded. Well, actually, both would go to Denfeld to the welding program. I particularly loved that the $1,500 grant would be used for an all-girls after-school welding program that they hope to restart up this winter. The second, so it's recommended that the Duluth School Board receive this item as informational. The second grant that's been submitted and also received will be taking action on it later was with the Hospitality Minnesota Education Foundation grant. It was submitted for $5,000 and for the purchase of industry-based Pro Start curriculum for our culinary programs. So it's recommended that the school board receive this item as informational. The third is a grant that Chrissy Valento from Lincoln Park Middle School art teacher submitted from the Irving Community Center in the amount of $500. It would defray cost of art club supplies. It's recommended that the Duluth School Board receive this item as informational. And then the fourth is another grant from the Irving Community Center grant, and it's was submitted by Deborah Porter, who's with our FACS, our Family and Consumer Sciences, and it's in the amount of $1,000 to supplement her food budget. And the last is a grant to Minnesota Power Foundation Youth and Philanthropy Grant. Katie from the Head Start and YWCA Collaborative submitted this grant in the amount of $1,000, and if awarded, it would be used to get take-home backpacks to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, along with literacy in the home. So it is recommended that the Duluth School Board receive this item as informational as well. There was a good discussion at the committee meeting also just about our grants and grant processes, and just kind of clarifying how when teachers choose to write grants, what that process looks like. And I would have asked this question if I would have been there. I would just like more information on that process, maybe at another committee meeting, but a good discussion. The next item is our regular action items, and there were no policies or data sharing agreements, but we do have a resolution accepting a grant, and that's on page 22. And Chair Kirby, would you like me to go ahead and do that?
Yes.
Okay. I move Resolution E10173485, acceptance of grant awards to Duluth Public Schools, whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept grants by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the grant in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools. Now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described grant from said organization in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to this organization. And again, this was the Hospitality Minnesota Educational Foundation organization. Bradley Vietz, one of our staff, wrote this grant with the culinary and hospitality program for $5,000. And again, funds would be used to purchase industry-based Pro Start curriculum. I move this resolution.
Second.
It's been moved by Member Leftel Kemp, seconded by Member Welty. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of Resolution E10173485, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes 7-0.
Okay. And then the last item is our regular diploma request, and the following students have met all graduation requirements for the Duluth Public Schools and should be awarded a diploma: Daniel C. Casperi, George E. Green, and Brandon M. Cheatham. It's recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve the above diploma request. Future items will be policy updates. Chair Kirby, I move the Education Committee.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Member Sandstead. Any discussion? Seeing none. Member Oswald.
I'd like to pull item, wrong page. 1B2.
1B2, okay. Anyone else? Why don't you go ahead?
Thank you, Chair Kirby. I just wanted to speak to a couple items that I touched on at the committee meeting level. In our packet, we did receive class numbers of class sizes and averages for our elementary schools. And as I pointed out at the committee level, Homecroft has the highest class sizes in the entire district, as they have 3 grade levels that have the highest out of 6. I understand budget cuts and things are part of that. Among that is that their kindergarten classes average 29 kids per class. The next highest, I believe, as I fumble looking, is 25 students who attend Laura MacArthur. The average kindergarten class size is 23, and so this is a high anomaly. And I know we have a great emphasis on early childhood education, and we want to do better for our younger students. I understand the reasons given to me by the administration at the committee level, but I don't find them acceptable, because our students at that age need small class sizes in order to prepare them for the future. So I'm pleading with the community to understand that nearly every school has a high number in at least one class, and we need community volunteers to step up and come to those schools and help out however they can, because we can't do it all alone anymore, not with a budget that we're stretching paper thin. The second thing I wanted to speak to is the differences between East classes and West classes. I counted them up, and I just wanted to state for the record that right now, for the fall semester, East is offering 18 classes that Denfeld does not. I didn't include comparable classes like East having the classical cooking and Denfeld having the deli. Those are comparable, but that's what I found out. I can detail where those are. Where the majority of them are is in things such as engineering and industrial tech classes and social studies classes. The other part of that is that Denfeld actually offers 2 classes that East doesn't. And, it just shows you that what we're currently doing is tailoring our curriculums to the students' desires and needs. And that's good in a lot of respects, but I know we have students in both schools that want to take those classes. And I certainly hope that we can do better at offering those in both places by some means. East also is offering 15 different CITS courses in 29 different sections. Denfeld has 13 different CITS courses in 17 sections. If you notice, 13 different courses in 17 means that the vast majority of those courses are singleton classes still. And I can only imagine that there's still a lot of problems with scheduling and a lot of kids that aren't getting in those college and the school's classes. I'm really hoping that we can focus on making every student that can achieve and can want and demand, I guess, free college credit that we offer, that they get that. There should be no barriers to that for equality purposes. And I'm just pointing out, East continues to offer a CITS class for chemistry in 0 hour. And that's free college credit to those privileged enough to be able to get there on their own with transportation. That's an equitable discussion that I don't have an answer to, because you don't want to deny it to people that want the college credit, but you want to make sure everybody can get there if we're going to offer it. And the last point I have is that for the last 3 years at least, Lincoln Park has been unable to offer a German class, German 1 in 8th grade, and so that translates to Denfeld will not have for the foreseeable future a German 5 class, because there is no way to offer German 5 there. But if there is a German student or a student that transfers in that qualifies for a German 5 class, I certainly hope we accommodate them, and I believe it's happening this year as there's 1 German 5 student at Denfeld in a CITS class. I don't know how that's managed, but it lists that on our courses. So, and I think these are all equality and equity issues that we need to keep working on, and I'm glad to see that there is progress, but the fight's not over.
Carrie, get your, there you go.
Just because I happen to know the background on the CITS German 5 student, I figured I'd provide that quickly. The principals actually worked together because we did only have one student at Denfeld who registered for that section, so they actually offered the course at a time during the day where the student could go to East, take the course there, take one more course in the morning, and then travel back to Denfeld during the wind period and still get that course. So it looks like it's a single student taking it all alone at Denfeld, but in fact, they're actually taking it with a full class of peers over at East High School.
Member Johnston?
Thank you, Chair. Just like to thank some of the flexibility you've got there. It's good to see. And also like to thank the administration for providing this to us. In the past, sometimes in the past we couldn't get this, and of course I'd like to thank Member Oswald for doing her analysis on it. And I'm hoping that the Denfeld people look at this too, and we can get a little better equity for this as well. It's something I'm hoping we're looking at.
No other discussion? Gives it. Okay. All right. Seeing no other discussion, it's been moved and seconded to accept the education report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It passes 7-0. Lights on?
It was on.
Oh. Stanstead's on. Oh, that's because she's going to talk. All right. Next is the Human Resources Committee report. Member Sandstead.
Thank you, Chair Kirby. The Human Resources Committee met last Monday at 4:15, and we discussed, as usual, the staffing report action items. There was not too many questions on the staffing report itself. We did talk briefly about the staffing overall for the district. We are nearly set with bus drivers, still need some substitute teachers, are filling some maintenance positions still, and same with paraprofessionals, and still looking for additional staff for food service. And so I checked, and there is still a link on the homepage of ISD709.org for applications for what we're still hiring. So if people are still looking for work, the district is still hiring. The other point of discussion, there were two other issues on our agenda. The first was approval of an individual contract for the assistant superintendent, and we all had a copy of that and discussed the just changes related to time and life insurance and compensation. And then the last item we discussed was the statewide minimum wage increase that's going to take effect in January up to $9.65, and staff is working on making some modifications to accommodate that. And so that is the Human Resources Report, which I move.
Thank you. Moved by Member Sandstead, seconded by Member Oswald, I think. Any discussion on this? Member Johnston.
3A.
3A, okay. Anyone else? No? Why don't you go? Oh, sorry. Member Harla.
Look here and see.
I just would like a separate vote on the certified long-term subs, please.
On the certified long-term subs.
In one.
Oh, okay.
Item one.
All right. So it'd be staffing report 1. Okay.
Just the certified long-term subs
Right.
portion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, let's do that. First, Member Harla, do you want to speak to that?
I just would like in a separate vote so I can abstain.
Okay. All right. We can do that now. It's been moved by Member Harla to have a separate vote, and is there a second? Second. Seconded by Member Lefler-Kemp. Any discussion on that? Member Johnston?
I would just like to ask, is there some issue? I mean, I don't know. I don't recall this being talked about And I certainly don't have a problem with the second vote, but just wondering, is there something that we should know about, or?
My mom's name is on there, and so I don't want a public conflict of interest, and so I'm choosing to abstain when it comes to a vote to ensure that I'm not crossing any unneeded boundaries. So.
Okay, thanks. All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the staffing report action item. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 6-0.
Abstain.
And one abstention. So 6 for, 1 abstention, no opposed. Thank you. All right, Member Johnston.
Oops. Well, thank you, Chair Kirby. I was just going to we talked about this, and again, I've always been in favor of increasing the minimum wage more than what the state minimum is, and kind of brought to mind at our local Solutions to End Poverty session, I think that we were all at, that there was a question asked the city councilors, not us, of course, but I think all the city councilors, or the question was, would you like to raise the minimum wage up to $15 an hour? And I think every one of the candidates said yes. For the city council, it wasn't a question to us. But just kind of passing that on, it does seem like there's a movement in our community that I guess I would say would agree with me that $9.60 an hour just is not acceptable for people that we have in our employ. Just making that comment, and certainly would like to see that changed in the future.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the HR report? All right, it's been moved and seconded. Seeing no other discussion, all in favor of adopting the Human Resources Committee report, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. All right, thank you. Next, we go to the Business Committee report. Member Harla.
Thank you, Chair. We had a brief but good discussions within our business committee last month with regard to the financial reports. We will get a cash flow report resuming later this year, looking at approval, payment of claims, etc. One note and 1F for the APU projections that we are above our projected number this year with student enrollment. So that's good. And when I did walk to school day last week at Lincoln Park, they talked about how and there might be additionally now, but there were 50 students that have come in from the first day of school on from there. So that's an unplanned opportunity for us to make sure that student class sizes and all those other pieces, but glad to see that we are welcoming in additional families. And then note the normal fundraisers. There were no bids, RFPs, or quotes, no updated policies and regulations. Then we moved on to contracts, change orders, and leases. With regard to contracts, we are up for our approval tonight. It is recommended that the Duluth School Board approve the contract with the YMCA for Key Zone Services. They support our after-school programming at all of our elementary school sites. This is a long-time relationship, and it was nice to have staff from both Key Zone and the school district present. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. It's okay. So I'm just getting back on track. All right. So working with Key Zone, and it was neat to see district-wide how we are able to continue to support students in their after-school programming. At one point in time, the Y held after-school programming, and other people. There were lots of different types of after-school programming offered at each school. So it's nice to see that there's a consistent programming and support and relationship between the Y and the Duluth schools across our community and all of our elementary schools. Moving on to change orders. Change order B1, a final change order for the Stowe Elementary Playground, and this is actually it is recommended that the Duluth School Board approve the change order, which deducts $830 from the original contract, from the sum of $310,761. So we actually it came in at less. So thank you for that, Mr. Spooner, for watching those line items. I know that you do watch our budgets closely. So glad to see that is, so it's a change order in our favor. And then moving on to change order B4B2. This was the discussion about removal of rubber mulch from playgrounds for SAS Associates, Phase 2, and which was postponed definitely until the October school board meeting. After discussion, it's recommended that the Duluth School Board postpone definitely this until the November school board meeting. This ensures that as we're closing out with the changes, with the how the rubber mulch was put in, and the need to have less poured in place rubber at the base of a number of the hot zones where students slide and fall, and making sure we're in compliance with all of those pieces, we'll be seeing a savings in that. So in order for us to be able to review the full item at hand, we want to look at where we'll be seeing a savings and a potential increase in another contract. So it's good to have the discussion all at once versus having the chicken or egg discussion 2 months in a row. So I'm looking forward to having that discussion next month. There were no additional other change orders. There continues to be a placeholder and moving forward discussions with the Hills, formerly known as the Woodland Hills lease. And then I'll move on to resolutions. Mr. Chair, would you like me to address those now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. On page 36 of our packet, you'll see Resolution B-10-17-3486, acceptance of donations to the Duluth Public Schools. Whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires a school district to accept donations by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full. And whereas acceptance of the donations in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interests of the Duluth Public Schools. Now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described donations from said organization in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it therefore resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to these organizations. And so there was a donation given to Denfeld from Tim Mutt for softball, and then also to Hawks for Advantage Emblem. And so I move this resolution, Chair.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution B 10-17-3486. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes 7-0.
And then moving on to Resolution B-10-17-3487. We had a number of discussions last month and this month with regard to the transition to paperless process using board book. And so I move this resolution. Whereas the Duluth School Board of Independent School District 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, currently utilizes a paper process and board book as an electronic format, the board-related materials, and whereas becoming paperless will reduce the use of paper and the cost associated with the board packets while increasing functionality and efficiency for board members, district staff, and the public. Therefore, be it resolved that the administration will move forward with the necessary steps for the school board to begin a paperless process on January 1, 2018. So I move this resolution.
It's been moved by Member Harlow, seconded by Member Sandsted, to adopt Resolution B 10-17-3487. Any discussion on this? Member Johnston and then Member Welty. Member Johnston.
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to postpone indefinitely.
Indefinitely?
Yes.
Is there a second to that?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to postpone this resolution indefinitely. Is there any discussion on this motion? Did you want to say something? Go on. Member Harlow?
No, I was just turning the light on.
Oh, all right. Is there anybody that, Member Sandsted?
I guess I'd just like to know why we should postpone this. I'm ready to move forward.
Member Johnston?
Sure, I'd be glad to explain. I think we had a fairly good discussion on this at the committee meeting a month ago, and it wasn't talked at all about in the last official meeting. We talked about it again at the committee meeting now, and I was surprised to see that it came up since there didn't appear to be any support on it a month ago. The main thing is that I see absolutely no benefit to this whatsoever, zero. We as a school board are the lowest paid people in the school. And we don't have any staff. We have limited access to information. one of the few, what I call perks that I get is that we get a paper copy. And I would like to note that there is virtually no other classes that I'm aware of in the school that have went paperless. We still have textbooks. I did notice that the superintendent likes to go paperless, and I certainly think that is fine. And I noticed some of the staff here today did that as well. Some of the staff are not doing that as well. We, as a school board, have an option to go paperless if we want. At least we were told that everything is on the board book, and I've noticed that nobody has done that at all. And consequently, since I don't see any benefit to this whatsoever, I see zero benefit of it. And the cost savings is not there. The cost savings, half of the cost savings was an employee. We are not going to be reducing that employee's salary. That will be transferred to another function, which of course I don't want to have her reduce her pay, but will not be saving anything on the school. The amount of savings that we have is minuscule, if anything at all. And for those people that think that I don't want progress, as somebody who is very literate in all kinds of computer platforms, and somebody who has programmed and still does numerous beta testing of programs, I'm making this because I don't want to do this. I'm very picky about the software that I use, and maybe the software is really great, and I don't doubt that the superintendent likes it, but before I go to anything like this, I would like to be able to beta test it. And I'm very picky on my software. And I want to make sure that my job as a school board member is not being diminished by doing this. And at this point, I see that it is being diminished. And for that reason, I would like to ask this board to postpone indefinitely.
Member Welty.
In our discussion of this topic, and my thoughts on that discussion, my biggest concern is transparency. We are talking about saving a fairly small amount of money in staff time preparing paper documents and possibly saving some forests from being turned into more documentation. But my fear is that by making this electronic, we will have a lot of people who might ordinarily take a look at some of our paper documents at meetings, for instance, trying to follow along and find that they are no longer able to do that. I have a slightly different idea than completely postponing this. I would be willing to proceed, but I have in mind an amendment to this. I'd like to read it now for your consideration before we vote on postponing this indefinitely, or if I should, perhaps I should wait.
Point of order. Go ahead.
That wasn't on the record. You
Okay.
wanted to say it again.
You can't amend a motion to postpone indefinitely. So, Member Welty, are you?
Oh, well, actually, my plan was not to amend it. It was to give the school board a heads up on my alternative to this should the postponement motion fail. But I'll wait until that may or may not happen.
Okay. Member Harlow.
Thank you, Chair. This was something that I was kind of pushing for last year in my tenure as school board chair, seeing that and having talked to other school board members across the state and many other folks working in board books. It's average for many boards to be working paperless, and it's a way of moving into the next century. One of the areas that I was really impressed by was knowing that the online piece of the board book, once something is officially approved, it then becomes public too. So there were some questions back and forth, and I don't think that was clear. It didn't come out very clear at the end of the business committee, but just want to be sure that where there were questions where sometimes there are things we wait to make public until after they're voted on, they still are available on the board book following. I do want to make sure if there are members of the audience, or actually, excuse me, one question that I had for, I'm not sure if it's superintendent or if it's Mr. Hassler, but will there be availability of access to wireless in this room for people that should bring a personal device so that they're able to have access in the room? I don't know. Okay, I see our technology expert.
Yes, there's Wi-Fi in this room already, and there's public access to it.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure, because then people were to bring a phone or another wireless device, they could have that there, and also there would be a print copy available as well. So, right. Just wanted to double check on that. I'm very much in support of this moving forward in the next year.
Thank you. Student Representative Francis.
I was just wondering if there would be an option to be able to select whether or not you wanted a board book or not, because typically you only get a big packet like that on like Christmas or your birthday. So it still makes me kind of excited when I see it every month. So I was just wondering if there would be an option, because I really like it.
I love it.
Member Leffler-Kemp.
Well, I'm with Cabria on, I get excited when it comes in my mailbox too, but some of the questions that I do support moving forward with board book. This isn't a new discussion. We've had it for a few years now, and so not a new discussion. And last month, and I didn't bring it with me, but Doug, Mr. Hassler had kind of put together a document with a lot of kind of good background information around board book versus and the cost. And so some of the questions that have been touched on that I just want to be clear on, paper copies would be available here at the meetings for the public, is what I know was one of the questions that was brought up. We all can make our own paper copies if we so choose as well, if that's how we prefer to work. I probably would do that a few times. And then my understanding was Chair Kirby did do some research with districts around the state, I think 5 districts you said, our size or larger, and 4 of those 5 districts are using board book, and I think there was a number of how many around the state have chosen to go this route. I understood from the discussion that training would be provided for all of us as board members, so we're more comfortable with it as well, and I would imagine our student reps could be a part of that training as well. And then my understanding from the discussion was there would be a cost savings of over $10,000. Was that a number? I have it written here, and I'm not. Can you clarify that?
Superintendent says he can do that.
Yes, I have a sheet right here if you'd like to see it.
Okay.
I know it's on a piece of paper, but it was handed to me as we started the meeting. The total on here is $10,284. I did some quick math while we were sitting here. If you were to take just the printing costs and paper costs and the postage, it's $5,904 on a yearly basis. So taking the staff time out, so the print shop staff time to put that together, and staff time to put them, address envelopes and put the postage and do all that. So if you just look at the paper, the printing and the postage, it's $5,900. The costs of Chromebooks and do you say mice? And mouses or mice when it comes to computer software, I'm not sure, or hardware, would be a total of $4,725. If we consider they would last longer than 1 year, if we said even they had a 4-year lifespan, if it went with election cycles, that would be $4,700 over a 4-year period, where the printing costs over a 4-year period would be $20,000. If we just looked at paper printing and postage.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So some pretty significant cost savings. And then the other area that had came up was around transparency, and I think Member Harala touched on it, is this information already goes up and is public information, what we get and what we present. So in terms of the public having access to it, it's there. And then the other just note I'm seeing from our discussion is we would have available to us at the meetings a paper copy of the agenda, and if there are any other changes or that would come to us, paper copy as well. So, I guess I see no reason why we would not want to move forward, and when there is such significant cost savings, as well as the training would be available for us, paper copies you could make if you choose to use that route, and information would still be available, paper copy for the public as it is right now.
Thank you. Member Oswald?
I just had a follow-up question for student member Francis. Are student members getting Chromebooks too?
That is in the current plan, that they would also receive Chromebooks to do this work with.
If I may follow up to that, yay perk. We may not be able to give you one for every class period, but if you're on the board, you'll get one. I think that's a great perk.
Member Welty.
Yes, I think 2 points related to the last argument for this from Member Leffler-Kemp. Actually, I think I'm not certain that all the documents that the school board sees are available for the public's view, and the training that we board members would get would probably not be available for the public. So while we might become adept at filing or pouring through the electronic data, the public might have some difficulty with that. I am thinking that if we do proceed with this, one of the things, I do have an amendment that I'll offer should the motion fail. One of the things we ought to consider, probably would have been helpful even now, is if we could project the documents that we are discussing about on some screens for the public to see in case they don't have access to the paper, or should they not be able to have their own electronica to follow the documentation as we discuss things. So I still think the issue of transparency is something we will need to address and work very hard at if we do proceed with the Chromebooks.
As mentioned earlier, I did discuss with 5 districts across the state, not representative, but they did include Minneapolis and St. Paul, the 2 largest districts, who both use paperless meetings, and transparency was not a problem. A printed copy was provided to the public. I'm not sure if they projected things, but there does not seem to be an issue with the use of that, especially given all of the controversy and budgetary problems and other things similar to the things we have in those districts. Some of the people did say they've had these for 5 and 6 years. There may have been some initial hesitancy on some of the board members, but I was told that most, if not all, are, I wouldn't say enthusiastic, but accepting this without any difficulty. Member Sandsted.
Yeah, I just wanted to make it perfectly clear that we're still going to have paper copies for the public, so there's no issue with transparency. That's not, in terms of what the public's going to have access to, it's not going to change one single bit. So I'm going to call the question on this.
All right, the question has been called. All in favor of calling the question, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So we'll call a question. So it's been moved by Member Johnston, seconded by Member Welty, to postpone indefinitely this resolution. And aye will be to postpone it, and nay will be to defeat the motion. So all in favor say aye. Two ayes, all opposed say nay. Nay.
Nay.
So the motion fails 2-5. All right, so the initial resolution then has been moved and seconded. Member Welty.
So I haven't had a chance to craft an amendment that would be as brief as I would like it, but I would like to make the following motion: that after the completion of this motion where it ends, therefore be it resolved, the administration will move forward with the necessary steps for the school board to begin a paperless process on January 1st, 2018. We add the words, this paperless process's continuance will be contingent upon a demonstration that all current documents available to the public are just as easily accessible to the public in this new electronic format.
Can you state that again?
Yeah, I can read it again. If I had a little more time to edit, I would change it a little bit. But this paperless process's continuance will be contingent upon a demonstration that all current, I'll add paper documents available to the public are just as easily accessible to the public in this new electronic format.
Did you get that out? Thank you. This is to the public in that format. All right. Is there a second to that? Second by Member Johnston. All right. We need some discussion on this amendment then? Member Johnston.
Could somebody read that again?
In the box. Oh, in the box. Resolution. There's a motion to amend this paperless process will be contingent on a demonstration that all current paper documents available to the public are just as easily accessible to the public in this new electronic format.
I would just note that where it says processes, it's a possessive. The paperless. This paperless process's continuance will be contingent. Doing a lot of 50-cent words.
Member Johnson, do you still?
Okay, I'm going to make a motion to delete that motion and substitute the following. Add at the end, after 2018, school board members will have the option to continue to receive the current paper process.
This is in addition?
No, that was an amendment to delete Member Welty's motion and substitute this.
Substitute amendment. All right. Now, can you read that again? Did you get that one down?
I think maybe if you could read it one more time so I can double check.
School board members will have the option to continue to receive the current paper process.
All right. School board members will have the option to continue to receive the current paper process. All right, so that's moved by Member Johnston. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
So Member Oswald will second it. Okay. All right, so we will discuss no further amendments until we deal with these.
Get one more.
All right, is there a discussion on this? Member Harlow?
Yeah, I had a discussion initially on Member Welty's comment, but
We're,
yeah,
we have to deal
sorry,
with this first, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I just think it's important to move forward with the process altogether. It's based on a budget. Understanding that there will be a training period for this and that we've been assured by district staff that there will be training available, it makes sense to move forward with the whole board.
Member Welty.
I'm still going to hark back to that question about transparency. Obviously, the administration believes that it can make all this information available to the school board and properly train them. I am still concerned that there may be a failure to be able to make this material as easily accessible to the public as I would like to be assured that it will be. The motion to amend by substitute is a little bit different than my wordy amendment. And it does not really guarantee that the public will be able to have a paper, a document. Some of the earlier discussion talked about there being a single paper document available. But I would be willing to accept that substitute because it's a lot simpler, and it could be considered a transition should we eventually end up with a school board fully composed of people who are quite happy to dispense with the paper. So it seems to me to be a fairly rational way to accomplish the same thing that my wordy amendment offered up. So can I accept that as a acceptable substitute for mine, or do we have to vote?
We have to vote
as a group. All right. I will be supporting this as a substitute to mine in a vote.
Okay, Member Oswald.
I second to this motion because I'm looking at this from an equity point of view. Member Harla pushed this agenda item on, and she will not be sitting in her seat by the time this takes effect. We don't know what future school board members elected to sit up here will look like. Some may not have internet access and will have to go other places where it would just be much easier to get a paper packet. I don't intend for this to be a lot or used often, but I want to think about making sure that being on a school board and getting elected, that once you're here, there are no barriers to the information that you have access to. So I totally support this motion.
Member Johnston?
Well, I want to like to apologize to the public and even the board that we're even having this discussion. I've heard two members say this is significant cost savings. The total savings after the superintendent mentioned it and is maybe $4,800 a year. $4,800 a year is significant cost savings. That doesn't even, when we have our budget deficit we've had for the last couple of years, that doesn't, something that small isn't even worthy of a line item on that. They call in Washington dust on the decimal. So there is no cost savings here. I see any reason to do this whatsoever. None whatsoever. I don't see having another Chromebook a perk. I've got probably how many computers at home and how many tablets and how many smartphones and how many unsmartphones. This is not a perk to me. I sometimes also appreciate having paper in my hand. I like to even read books, and I even read magazines once in a while. Magazines that are printed on paper. I kind of like paper. Training time. Yeah, we'll have training time. Say again, we're the lowest paid people on this in the school district. In my time, one of my least favorable things in life is training to use a new computer program. I've done it so much, and I train other people to do it, and it is the least favorable thing that I can think of. And that's me. I know some people think this is cool, and that's okay. For those people that think this is really cool, you can do it right now. There's no reason that you have to have a paper copy. You can ask our secretary, you don't want a paper copy, and you can bring you can get, I'm sure you can get a laptop, or you can bring your own laptop, or I can bring my tablet in here and I can use that. People remember I used to bring my tablet in here, and notice I don't anymore because it doesn't really add a whole lot to my ability to comprehend what's going on. I think the screen display is needed. The city council, they have TVs all around the room. Every member has a TV or a computer screen in front of themselves. The clerk has a, what do you call it, the projector, where you can project paper on there so everybody can see the paper. And I think that we would definitely have to go to something like that, because I can't imagine that we aren't going to have a piece of paper once in a while somebody's going to want to see, or maybe some member of the public's going to bring in. So I guess I'm asking this board, since I can see zero reason, there is dust on the decimal cost savings for this, I'm asking to put in this amendment, which will allow school board members like myself who don't want to do this, not because I'm technologically illiterate, but because I am technologically literate, and that I make the choice that I don't want to do this. If there was actually some savings on this, maybe I would do it. And at this point, there is none. And I can't see any other, since there's no savings, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this for something that me as one board member finds objectionable? I don't understand why we're even wasting our time. This should be voted down, and we should move on to more important things. And so my amendment will at least spare a little bit of the pain so the board can continue working, and so I can continue working without having to go to some training, which I don't have time to do, and which I don't want to do. And these are nice books, and I like them. I'm asking the board here to allow people that make the choice not to do that to continue to receive paper copies. I'm almost pleading to the board to please do not do this. Or I'm asking, please accept my amendment to this.
Member Welty?
I agree with Member Johnson. The justification for this based upon savings is ludicrous. Savings are non-existent, frankly. I am also old school. I like paper. I had 8 years worth of board books that I had saved and put in a file cabinet when I hopped off the board in the year 2003, and kept them for a number of years, even though I didn't often look at them, but I had kept notes just as I'm doing now, and frequently questions would arise about the past, and I would go back and I would look it up. I realized that is also possible in the computer age, and the Chromebooks would allow that if we're doing a good job archiving that material, if it's all on the cloud or in our hard drives. And it strikes me that this is a very reasonable and a very simple amendment. It will basically deny the administration an opportunity to save $4,800 or something of that sort in savings. I'm willing to spend that money for those board members who would like to continue getting this in a paper copy. And if, as the new year approaches, we no longer have people who want to keep paper, the administration could dispense with that at that point in time. But it seems to me premature to make that decision now. And for the savings that are, negligible, I think this is a very small a bone to toss those people who would prefer to use paper. So I encourage us to vote for this substitute amendment, and then to accept the addition to the resolution when we consider the whole.
I will be voting against this. I think that the issues of equity and transparency, again, I think to St. Paul and Minneapolis, those do not seem to be issues at all. And they both have equity and transparency issues at times. I think the savings was $6,000 per year just for printing and postage. That's likely to go up. That's, say, $60,000 if nothing goes up, which is unlikely. And we have argued over much smaller numbers for, quote, budgetary reasons. Now, this reminds me of dragging people who are kicking and screaming into electronic health records. Oh, there were doctors that just could not have an electronic health record. They had to have a paper chart. And now you try and hire a physician to a clinic that does not have electronic health records. There's a learning curve, yes, but I will be voting against this, and I think we should move forward to the paperless process. Member Johnston.
Some clarifications. We're talking about $4,800 per year, not $60,000.
$5,900 it was.
And minus, I just took the cost of the Chromebooks, if they're going to last 4 years at whatever it is. What do we got here? $8,000. So I took $1,000, prorated that per year. So no, we have never argued over $4,800 before, ever, and it's really embarrassing that we're wasting our time arguing over $4,800. And I guess I take umbrage that people that don't want this, or somehow we're dinosaurs. Sorry, that is not the case. I have many technological wonders in my house, and I don't want another one. And I like to look at paper, and I'm asking this board to don't be silly and try to save $4,800 for something that's just going to make at least one other board member think that one more silly thing that this board is doing for no reason whatsoever. $4,800, we should not be talking about that. We've never talked about that before. Doctors and hospitals, I believe doctors make a little bit more than $7,000 a year. And if you've went in hospitals, they have an enormous technological infrastructure, and it works very well. Doctors are mostly on staff for, 40, 60 hours a week. We are coming to a meeting here. We have 2 meetings, basically, maybe 3 meetings a month. And so there's no analogy whatsoever between hospitals and this boardroom that we're sitting in. And again, it's embarrassing that we have to continue having this discussion, but I'm asking this board simply to make an extension for those members. I don't think I will be the only one that would just assume keep using paper copy, and let the board members make that decision when to do this, not being forced, not something that's being forced on all board members for a completely insignificant cost savings and even less reason.
Member Harlow.
I just want to make a note that I know that the term dust in a decimal has been stated a lot, and I want to be really careful that when we're utilizing taxpayer dollars, we want to make sure we're spending every dollar wisely. So any way that we can get to that, I'm in support of that.
Superintendent?
As I break down the cost of this, and I see that the paper and printing plus the postage for both the committee meetings and the regular board meetings, that's $492 a month. And if we divide that by 7 members of the board, that would be $70.28 a month to mail your packets to you.
Point of order, then you'd have to divide it by 9 because you have to include
9. Sorry.
Member Welty.
I can think of a couple of other infamous transactions our board has squandered a great deal of money on, far in excess of this. And I wish the issue of paying attention to the taxpayer had been considered before we had approached those particular embroglios.
All right. Seeing no other lights, we can vote on this substitute amendment. Please have that still.
The first line here. School board members will have the option to continue. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, if you would, that would be great.
School board members will have the option to continue to receive the current paper process.
That was made by Member Johnston, seconded by Member Oswald. Excuse me. All in favor of that substitute amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.
No. I didn't hear all votes.
I didn't hear all votes.
Can you
So we'll start again. In support of the amendment, say aye.
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 There's 3 opposed. Nay.
No. I didn't hear a vote from member.
Member Sandsted, I didn't. Nay. So the motion fails 4-3. So we will then consider Member Welty's amendment.
Substituted though?
No.
Failed. Substitute
Okay.
failed.
Okay.
So we go to the next one. Is there any further discussion on this? Member Sandsted.
I'd like to call the question.
The question's Ms. Calder. Second to that?
Second.
Second. All in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Calling the question for Harry's amendment.
Member Welty.
Member Welty. I'm sorry. Member Welty. Sorry.
Do you want me to read it?
Yes. He's going. The vote was 4-3 to call a question.
You need to actually vote on calling the question. Can you start that over again?
Okay. All in favor of calling the question, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
So 4-3 to call the question. So do you want to read the amendment, please? Is that a two-thirds? Is that a two-thirds? Okay. All right, then. My fault there. Member Johnston.
I will again apologize to the public and the board for even having this discussion. This is silly. I'm asking here to, at least me, the board considers that I can get a paper copy, or me or anybody else, when they want. I don't quite understand what I call a shaming that somebody doesn't want to use the latest technology while everybody else does it. That's called shaming. Some people would call it microaggression. I think that it's time that that this board quit being so draconian, and this whole thing is silly. And this one of your things you forgot, if we put a screening system on there, which I think we're going to have to do, what's that going to cost? $10,000. And so again, I'm asking this. I will accept Mr. Welty's, even though Mr. Welty's amendment doesn't do much for the board. It will at least protect some of the public, and so I will be voting for that, even though I see this whole thing as being an insult and a shaming of people that don't go along with the herd. And I think it's this whole thing, and I'll be, of course, voting against this eventually. So again, I can't believe that we're doing this at all. It's really almost unbelievable that we're doing this, considering there's some people that don't like this. Forcing your opinions on somebody else, shaming other people because they don't agree with your cute little Chromebooks.
Member Welty.
I still go back to that issue of transparency. I want proof when we transferred to a Chromebook system that the public will have as easy access to the documents that we discuss as they currently do. And it seems to me premature for us to presume that that will be the case, and until such time as I can be satisfied that the public can see this information as easily in the electronic era, I would like to have a transition. And without this, we are assuming that the public will just have to put up with whatever we show them, and I'm afraid I just don't have the trust until I actually see that it works. So I will be supporting my original amendment.
Member Harla.
I feel like this is actually an amendment that's already been asked and answered, that there will continue to be the same public process where documents are available for the public. So I feel like this is redundant, and so we'll be voting against it because it will continue to be the same for the public as it has been. Therefore, so I don't see this amendment as necessary, as the current processes will continue. Therefore, addressing the questions on transparency for the public, as it will remain the same.
I do have a question. It's a bit vague. I don't know how do you demonstrate this? To who's? Member Welty.
Well, as board members, we can take a look and see what the public sees. We can talk to the public, see if they're able to find this material, and perhaps it will only take a month or two or three before we can be certain that the public is able to find information as easily as they do now, or whether they feel that board meetings are being conducted in such a way so that they really don't know what we're talking about because they don't have the documentation before them. I don't think that will take very long. 2, 3, 4 months, perhaps.
Member Lefler-Kemp?
Yes, just again, would you just clarify, either Mr. Hassler or Superintendent, what changes when the board has a board book with the public and what they already see and have access to?
Superintendent?
The district has been using electronic board book since 2010. So for 7 years, we have had an electronic process in place. Really what the public sees and receives isn't going to change. They will still have the same access to board book, and we will still have it available here at the meeting as we have. So really, nothing is changing for the public. The only thing that won't be happening is we won't be mailing out the paper copies.
Member Johnston?
For those people that think $4,800 is a significant saving worth having all discussion over, I would certainly suggest, and I've mentioned this several times before, that if we don't need to get 2 copies of this in the mail. I see no reason whatsoever. I've mentioned this many times in the past. Why are we getting 2 copies of 2 identical copies, one for the committee meeting, one for that? So that would cut our cost from $4,800 down to $2,400. And so by just doing that is a very simple request. I've asked that many times. I don't know why we're getting all this paper in the mail. I get them, I come there, and I end up throwing them in the trash or in the recycling. And I would very gladly forego having that other one. That would cut our cost down to $2,400. For those that think that's good, that would be a significant cost savings for those that think that. And so I think we have some alternatives to accommodate those people that want to make another $2,400 cost savings. Would cut the cost in half by just not sending out 2 sets of paper copies. And so I think that would be good. And again, just reminding everybody that anybody that wants to use their computer, and I think the superintendent is using his computer now to access board book. And anybody could do that right now. Any board member here wants to bring in their tablet or their laptop or even ask one. I'm sure the superintendent would have given anybody a Chromebook if they would have asked. And since nobody has ever asked, I'm kind of wondering why. Now we're all going to force everybody all en masse to do it when we've always had this opportunity and no members have ever taken it before. And so for those two reasons, I guess, and I'll quit wasting everybody's time on such a ridiculous thing. One, please defeat this whole amendment. I'll be voting for Mr. Welty's amendment, but I'll be voting against this amendment, and totally because one, it is really silly, and we can accomplish everything by reducing our paper copies. And since I don't think anybody really on this board wants to do this, because nobody has done it, even though it's always been there.
All right. Seeing no other lights, I think we can vote on this amendment. Do you want to read it one final time, Superintendent?
So we're on the amendment, right?
Right. Member Welty.
Add to the end of the resolution, this paperless process's continuance will be contingent on a demonstration that all current paper documents available to the public are just as easily accessible to the public in this new electronic format. Is that right?
All right. It's been moved and seconded. I can't remember who seconded it.
Moved by Welty, seconded by Johnston.
Moved by Welty, seconded by Member Johnston. All in favor of this amendment say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Nay. No.
2 to 5.
It fails 2 to 5. So that brings us to the initial resolution, which has been moved and seconded. Member Johnston.
Sorry, I won't talk too much more, but I'm just asking this board to have consideration for their other board members. I don't want to do this. $2,400 is not worth alienating another member for no reason whatsoever. And I'm asking the board to take that into consideration and vote no on this. Even if we vote no on this, anybody still has the option to do anytime they want. They can bring in their tablet or their laptop to go paperless if they want. I'm asking for us to defeat this, and you can still do what you want. And other people that want to have the paper copy can continue doing what they want. I think it's a very simple solution to say no.
No further lights. We can vote on this resolution. All in favor of resolution B1017-3487 as written say aye. 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 Opposed?
No.
So that passes 4 to 3. All right. I want to continue with the business report. Oh, yes, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There continues to be a placeholder for extended sale of bonds to be discussed at a future date. No updates today. Board will be updated at a future date. As was discussed last week, we will hear, as that continues to move forward, the same as we continue to hold and work on marketing the properties. Next, we have informational items, expenditure contracts, revenue contracts, no-cost contracts. The facilities management capital status report. Thank you very much for that piece back on 111 and a number of updates. So, Mr. Spooner, thank you for that update this week. You continue to work really hard to ensure that our district is covered. So, thank you. Then, moving on, looking for future items that the change order to be discussed in November, final levy approval, audit results, and policy updates. And Chair, I move the Business Committee report.
Thank you. Is there a second to the Business Committee report approval? Seconded by Member Leffler-Kemp. Any discussion on this? Member Johnston.
I'd like to call for a special vote on 4A1 and 4B1.
4A1
Together or separate?
Separately or together? I'm saying yes. Each of them separate?
He has got his lights back on.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was on still.
We'd like to have just a small discussion on 4B1, but other than that, we could probably have them together after that.
Okay. I see no other lights. Why don't you go ahead?
Okay. Sure, we talked about this a little bit. I want to thank the superintendent and thank the Stoll staff in getting the playground done. It looks pretty nice, and I was concerned about the cost, but it looks pretty nice. And the concern we had, and of course the Gary New Duluth people, was that it was locked, and I know the superintendent and the principal, Mr. Glockley, are looking at that, and I'm hoping that we're going to get that opened up so the public can use it. So thanks everybody for getting that done, and thank particularly getting this opened up so the kids can use it from the rec center there.
Member Sandsted.
Yeah, I wanted to speak to the Key Zone contract, which Member Johnson pulled but didn't discuss. But I just wanted to say that I think it's a great partnership that we have with the YMCA, and I've been really impressed with the staff that they have brought into the schools, particularly at Lowell, where we experience it in my family, and the ability for enrichment and learning and getting outside and just more sort of support and time to just be kids is really awesome. So it's a great program, and I'm glad we're continuing to support it.
Thank you. All right, no other lights. We've been asked for a vote on these two items together is fine? Okay. So all in favor of accepting 4A and 4B, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So that passes 7-0.
This is 4B1, right?
4B1, I'm sorry, yes. 4A1 and 4B1. I don't, is there, yeah, 4A1. 4B1, 4A and 4B1. Correct, thank you. All right. So now we can vote on the remainder of the business report. Member Johnston?
Sure. The reason I pulled this out is that in the past, many members and people that I just always vote against the financial report because I thought, because of the budget issues that I had with the debt payments and whatnot, and lately I've been voting for that. I'm going to go back to voting against it. That's why I wanted to pull out these things, because again, I'm looking at some of the contract administration that we've talked about, and of course looking at the debt payments. I don't see that being changed, so I'm going to start voting against this, so just so everybody knows why.
Okay.
I won't usually say that, I'll just say it. So.
All right. Then all in favor of accepting the business committee report, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So it passes 6-1. All right. I don't think there are any special resolutions, either questions. Member Harlow.
It was going to move to adjourn.
Okay. Haven't got there yet.
Oh, okay.
Member Sandsted.
I just have a quick question. I'm wondering if we have an update, given that our October 15th deadline has come and gone. When can we expect the playgrounds to be finished? Thanks.
October 27th.
Mr. Spooner.
Yes, members of the board, I spoke with the contractor yesterday, and we have two sites that are not finished, Lowell and Myers-Wilkins. Lowell will be, it's anticipated to be completed on Thursday or Friday of this week, with site restoration complete. Myers-Wilkins, the earthwork will be completed by end of business on Friday of this week, and it will be completed in entirety by Thursday of next week. And by Friday of next week, the district-wide all-site restoration will be completed, and the project will be completed in a manner that will allow SAS and myself to do the punch list at all sites. So by Friday, a week from this Friday, everything will be complete, with the exception of punch list items that we find.
You have another follow-up? Okay. A follow-up? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Spooner. I know that we have made your life challenging with this, and I'm really delighted it's going to be done soon. And I know that it's that the staff have made really great efforts to get kids outside in other areas, but they're delighted, and I know my kids are going to be delighted to be back on the playground. So thank you.
Well, thank you. One comment I'd like to add is that I counted, and 61 of the last 105 days it has rained, and we've received 17.39 inches of rain during that period. So it was difficult for the contractor to move dirt when it rains. That's just the bottom line.
Member Lefferts-Kent.
I wasn't going to comment on that, but I'll just support what Member Sandstead said. As I'm out and about in the community, I'm hearing just really positive support from families with small kids in particular. So thank you. What I did want to comment on, and it was touched on, about parent-teacher conferences happening, and I was hoping Bernie would still be here, but I do want to acknowledge the time that our staff and our principals are putting into these conferences. I just had my 10th grade conference last night with my 10th grader at East, and just really appreciate the importance of these conferences as a parent, as well as appreciate the parents who are showing up to these conferences and getting in the door, not only to touch base with their child's teacher, but to see the different things that are going on in our schools. And I just know as a parent it was really great last night when my husband and I met with the teachers, and how much, even with some of the larger classes my child is in, they knew my child, and they asked questions I would have wanted them to ask. And so just want to say, as a parent with a child in school, conferences are very meaningful, and I thank again the staff for the time they put in, and parents for attending. Thank you.
Ms. Francis.
I talked about it a little bit earlier, but if anyone wanted an update on the boys' soccer game, we are winning 6-0, but the game's not over, so we'll see what happens.
Excellent. All right. Member Welty.
I'd just like to commend Cabria for not screaming out every time she saw a score was being registered.
Move to adjourn.
There's been a motion to adjourn in a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.